some of the various Musk-driven Doge firings got put on hold because Judge Engelmayer was hearing an emergency TRO request, ruled that those changes and those cuts could not go into effect until there was a ruling on a variety of issues dealing with administrative law that are, not really here nor there. It is not Engelmayer's case, to be clear. The case is going to be heard. It was heard on Friday by another judge. That said, this TRO kicked off a wild run of Musk and his fellow travelers and the other officials in the administration and Congress trying to impeach him, claim that he's activist, that it's judge shopping that got them there. I don't know how they got judge shopping by going to the Southern District, where there's like 40 judges, but whatever. Really interesting.
Maybe my parent of a toddler is showing, but the only thing I could think of when reading about this story was just what a tantrum. You need to go in a corner, friends.
Yeah.
Think about what you've done.
I thought what was really worrying was the attack on this temporary restraining order. Like, this is not a judge who said you can't do this. This is a judge who said
you have to hold the status quo until we litigate the issues.
Like, there is going to be a case on this. That case is scheduled for the end of the week. It was little less than a week that this TRO was put in place. That is. If that's what's making you mad, wait until the judges actually start ruling against you, you know?
I think what we're seeing in real time is an emergence of executive review, where you just have the executive as being the branch that can dictate and legitimize what the judiciary is doing. Because I think that's the undergirding sentiment that makes sense of like J.D. Vance's not clear attack on judicial review, but where he's saying like, judges can't do this about the executive.
It was pretty clear, I thought.
Well, you think it's pretty clear, but then you see the people supporting him. So I'm assuming that it's not, because the dum-dums are loud. So
these attacks resulted in follow-up comments that said stuff like the executive gets to decide all federal questions, which seems as though that would obviate what the court is for. Look, there is something to be said for the executive has control over, hiring and firing within the executive, right? There's money that's earmarked from Congress to do things, but internal decisions about how to execute those laws are executive prerogatives. That said, when you do something like, say, Congress gave us a bunch of money to have USAID and we're just firing everybody, that now crosses over into not being a internal efficiency decision and becoming we're going to defy Congress. And it's those questions that are at issue here. And that's why, and also there's APA issues as far as some of these regulatory rollbacks have to go through review and comment periods and stuff like that, that none of them are. They're just being slashed with no regard towards the laws that govern rulemaking, which are issues that courts have to decide. Because this isn't a question of the courts trying to usurp executive power. This is the courts saying Congress has already made some decisions here about what you have to do, and you're in violation.
Has we ever had a presidency where so many people in the executive has called for the impeachment of judges over disagreeing with them?
No. I mean, look, there were impeachment calls often in the civil rights era. There were a lot of Southern judges who had been appointed, largely by
You mean 1964?
FDR.
1960?
Yeah, like largely people who were veterans from like the Truman, the FDR Truman Eisenhower years, who were serving in like districts in Alabama and stuff like that, who would make rulings that said, yes, no, I mean, you can't, block voting. And a lot of very racist people in the South were very upset about that. And so there were calls to impeach some of those kind of judges, that era. But it was never like as extensive, I don't think, as this.
Yeah, I mean, it really should. And the interesting part, of course, right, is that It is a real flip from when Joe Biden was president, when the right very much held up the courts and the court's ability to change the law as the true salvation, which really just shows how craven it is, right? It's not about any principles about what government should be or separation of powers or checks and balances or anything like that. It is just which branches do we currently control?
Yeah.
Full stop. That is it. That is the only governing principle that any of these attacks have. And that has been true for the last 10, 15 years.
When folks were concocting jurisdiction out of whole cloth to go to Amarillo to have a right-wing activist who had been elevated to the bench make decisions to issue nationwide injunctions.
Right. So people couldn't get their medicine. Yeah.
They had no problem. Now, when the executive is in clear breach. And to be clear, the Biden administration, while they would complain about this being a problem, and there were calls to have reforms to how nationwide injunctions work, or calls to...
But it's different than,
or calls to change the judge shopping rules. Those were never... this ruling is illegitimate. Those were always, there need to be ways of dealing with this for the purpose of protecting the judiciary. We have crossed a line on this one into they're straight up calling these judges illegitimate.
Yeah.
Which mirrors the Roberts report this year. Roberts said in his report this year, he complained of people who criticized judges. I think... some people give him a little bit more benefit of the doubt than I do. I don't think he was foreseeing this kind of attack. I think trying to direct it at Trump. I think he was very much trying to direct it at the folks criticizing, people like Judge Kaczmarek and so on. But we will see.
Maybe he hears more in these far right circles and knows what it's going to happen and is trying to cut it off at the pass.
Maybe. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of faith in his ability to foresee this issue, but oh well.